Nolan Arenado turns down a trade from the Cardinals to the Houston Astros. That and more next here at The Upside. Top story tonight, as you guys join us here at MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network, is that Nolan Arenado has turned down a trade that would have sent him from the St. Louis Cardinals, who are going to go through a rebuild this season, to the Houston Astros. The reason being that he gave anyway is that it's too early in the offseason for him to really go anywhere at this point. Clearly, Arenado wants to be in a contending situation. Maybe he sees the trade of Kyle Tucker as a symbol of what could possibly happen for the Astros. They still might be a competitive team next year. I still think they will be. But he wants to make sure he gives himself the best chance to win next season, whether that be going to the Yankees or some other team. It seems his preferred, dream destination is the LA Dodgers. They're happy with Max Muncy over there at third base and are not interested in bringing in Arenado. But it seems like Arenado is trying to control where he ultimately goes, and he's earned that right with a limited no-trade clause. Welcome in. Appreciate you guys joining us. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Doc, welcome in. Liberty, John. Liberty, I believe Arenado will be a LA Angel. I don't think there's any real possibility that happens. That is one of the 6 teams that he has on his no-trade list. I was listening to a couple of different podcasts that Ken Rosenthal was on today, and basically saying the reason why they're on there is because they're not really going to get him. It's a West Coast team, so if they did trade him there, hey, whoop-de-doo, he's on the West Coast. But there's no real interest by the Angels in order to bring in Arenado. Now, I'm sure they would love to have a better player than Rendon at third base, but they're not going to be in the market for Arenado, and the Cardinals are going to do right by him anyway. They're going to put him in a championship-level situation, whether that be the Dodgers or somebody else that's at least got a good chance to make the playoffs. The Angels do not fit that description. I think the reason why they're on that list is primarily he has all the right to reject teams to the other clubs that are not a part of that 6. So, we'll see, where he goes. I think the Yankees ultimately are going to be one of the teams that are going to check in on Arenado. Bregman, of course, is the top third baseman on the market. Bregman, of course, is the biggest free agent out there. This doesn't preclude Arenado from going to the Astros later on. He just said that it's too early for him to be traded at this moment. He wants to see what the Astros do the rest of this offseason. He wants to see where a market might open up that might be interested in bringing him in. Say, for instance, the Mets called, at the end of January and are like, hey, you want to come in? Well, yeah, that would be a better win-now situation for him than going to Houston. I would say Houston still has some work to do as far as Bregman, as far as first base, as far as with their outfield situation. What are they going to do with Valdez? All those things are things that are up in the air right now for Houston, not to mention their bullpen with Ryan Presley. Meanwhile, the Mets have already shown a proclivity to spend this offseason. They still have work to do in that rotation. So once we get to, say, January, February, Arenado will have a lot more information as to where these teams are in the standings as far as where he believes they will finish the year and be able to make his choice as to where he wants to go. Now, of course, he still has those 6 teams that he's going to accept a trade to, so maybe, they do get a trade done, but teams like the Angels don't have a shot to bring him in. I think that's strictly just to maximize his ability to say no to all the other clubs. John, are the Yankees getting a first baseman? Good question there, John. I would say they're going to do something different. Now, what I mean by that is the initial report said that Cody Bellinger was going to play exclusively in center field. The ownership front office and the manager there, Aaron Boone, basically say, no, we haven't necessarily discussed it as far as, where he's going to be playing the majority of the season. Having a player who can play multiple positions is something you want to utilize, not necessarily pigeonhole them in one spot over another. Bellinger, I think, would be a great addition to their outfield as is currently constructed. I think their preference is still to play him in center field, but until they get it done, it's a poor bargaining position to say, hey, we're going to put him in center and not at first base, because if they do that, now the first basemen that are on the market, their price just went up a little bit because you've solved your center field issue and you're not going to put him at first base. If you say you're willing to play him at both, that opens up the free agent pool that you might be able to sign in another center fielder or trade for a center fielder. That keeps the prices down, maybe $1 million or $2 million among those other free agent options that are on the board for first baseman. So to answer your question, John, I think they're looking at third base and first right now, whichever way that gets them the most impactful bat at the moment. Welcome in, Holly. Appreciate you joining us once again. Got about 45 of you guys with us already. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. I noticed we had a few super chats in our last couple of lives. If you guys feel like supporting the channel or want to make sure your comment is read or question is answered as our chat gets a little bit more active, be sure to send one of those. We'd be more than happy to accept it, and we thank you in advance of anything you might decide to send towards us. Steven, Burns and Sasaki to San Francisco. I know Giants fans would absolutely love that. Burns, to me, they're still the favorite anyway for San Francisco to ultimately end up with Corbin Burns. I got a little bit more information on the Baltimore Orioles today as well. We'll get into that here shortly. But I still think the Giants are the favorite. But the longer this thing takes, the less and less likely it is going to happen. So Blue Jays have seemed to have already pivoted off of their Burns position that they're looking towards Nick Pivetta right now. I would think that's a wise move for them. They need to show some stability with that organization in order to convince top-level free agents to come there in the future. Possibly re-signing of Vlad Guerrero would be a great thing, but I don't think it's going to happen. Same thing with Bo Bichette. But as far as both of those guys going to San Francisco, I think that would be a dream offseason for the Giants, one that I don't think has any reality for it to happen, but it's not completely out of the realm of possibility. You look at where the Giants are right now in their win curve. They're still in a buildings phase right now of their organization. They're not necessarily ready to win right now. They got some good pieces coming in, but they still have more work to do. Whether they bring in Burns this offseason or not, I still don't think they're, the first team in that division. I don't think they're the second place team in that division. They could possibly compete for third with the Diamondbacks, but for me, there's still more work for them to be able to get done. As for Sasaki, who knows where he's going to go? I still think the overwhelming favorite is the Dodgers. I think the Giants are one of the 4 next group of teams that are in that conversation, with the Padres, Rangers, and Mariners rounding out that group. But Sasaki's going to be great wherever he goes. A great asset wherever he goes anyway. We'll see where he signs. John, are the Yankees getting Alonso? I would say the Yankees are at least checking in on Alonso. I'm not sure they'll get him done. I still think the Mets are the favorite there. David, the Yankees are going to sit and chill and hope a deal falls in their lap. They're going after Roki. I'm not sure they're going to wait until January 15th for Roki to fall into their lap. I'm sure they'll take a meeting with him, of course, along with the rest of the teams in Major League Baseball who already have meetings set up with him. I've heard over 9 teams now have already booked meetings with Sasaki's camp. Not just the Dodgers, the Giants, the Padres, the Rangers, the Mariners, the Cubs, the Mets, the Yankees, but others as well. But we'll see where he goes. I think he's probably the number one free agent on the board, considering the money that you'd have to spend on him. Soto, of course, is the best talent, of course, but $765 million versus $5 million for a starting pitcher, an elite level starting pitcher as well. Something to consider there. Welcome back, St. Vintage. Appreciate you joining us once again. James, welcome in. I noticed a few of you guys are in our chat newer. If you guys wouldn't mind hitting that like and subscribe, I really would appreciate that. Thank you very much. Would Sasaki consider a small market team like the Cardinals? Absolutely. An article that came out about a week ago now that basically detailed the troubles that Sasaki had with the media over there in Japan, and maybe doesn't give the greatest light on other media markets that he might be going to in the U.S. His agent kind of touched on that it was a factor that he'll be considering. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a make or break factor, though. So just because the media might be, a little bit more impactful to him than, say, another free agent, doesn't mean that he's completely ruling out big market teams. But I do think that it means small market teams might have a little bit more of a case than they might have had beforehand. So I still think he's going to go to a team that's going to be in serious contention for either a playoff spot or a serious contender for the World Series. Dodgers are still considered the heavy favorite. I put it at over 80% now for them. And then that group of 4 that I just mentioned. Stephen, agreed. Thanks for answering subscribe. Well, thank you, Stephen, for subscribing. I really do appreciate that. That does help us. Since we started the Winter Meetings coverage, we have gained over 180 subscribers now. So if you'd like us to help us reach our goal of 2,000 before the end of the year, we would really appreciate that. We're getting ever closer every single day. We got a little over 2 weeks left at this point, so let's see if we can get across that finish line. David, the Yankees are going after Roki, but besides that, they're going to wait on a good deal, in your opinion? I don't think they don't have the luxury of sitting back right now. I think they're, with as much money that's still out there, with the Blue Jays, Red Sox, Tigers lurking for Bregman, Astros in on Christian Walker, there's only a few bats that are left that are impact level bats. Once those bats are gone, then I agree with you, they'll sit back a little bit. But say Bregman's still out there on the board, I don't think they're going to sit back and wait for this one to come off the board. Once that piece comes off the board, then we could talk about them taking a back seat and seeing if an opportunity falls to them a little bit cheaper, a more cost-effective option. Maybe they go the trade route in January for a Nathaniel Lowe at first base if they can't work out a free agent deal with a first baseman. All of those things are in play, but I still think they're pushing the pedal down right now for another impact piece. Once they get that, I would agree with you, they'll throttle down a little bit and add an 8th inning guy at some point and another bat to kind of round out their lineup. But I do agree there that the Yankees will eventually throttle down, but I still think they're one more move away, an impact bat, before that happens. I think Bregman qualifies as that. Santander, they have no interest in. Teoscar Hernandez, I thought could have been a piece, but after the acquisition of Bellinger, that I think is out of the water. I think Walker could be that level of impact for them as well. Maybe a big-time trade in January could be in the offing as well. Maybe an Arenado type of a move as he wants to wait until January, February to make his decision as to where he wants to waive a trade to go to. Maybe even a Carlos Correa trade could be in the offing there. But those are all opportunities that the Yankees could sit back and wait for. So I do agree with you from that standpoint, David. St. Vintage, his agent also mentioned Jeremy Hefner in the Mets pitching lab is something Roki likes. I'll put it this way. Anything that a free agent like Roki Sasaki likes, you try to amplify that in the meeting. I'm sure the Mets will try to do so. And, we'll see where he ultimately goes. It's still too early to figure out where he's going to go at the moment, primarily because, there's so many teams that are going to try to chase for him. There's really no team that's going to have an advantage over another as far as a financial situation. Facilities, coaches, management, front office is all going to factor in. And some teams he's going to hit it off with, some teams he's not. So we'll see, where he ultimately, ends up. Willard, welcome back. By the way, Uptown, unless you're Dodgers and Yankees, Mets, or teams apparently to certain free agents like Arenado, a Cardinal third baseman, Houston is unworthy. I wouldn't say that. Arenado didn't even say that when he declined the trade there. It was more about that Houston tried to make this move before they had finished out their offseason, and Arenado wants to see how Houston finishes out their offseason. So if they don't get the job done as far as adding another piece to replace Tucker in that lineup, that will impact Arenado's decision. If they trade away Valdez and just bring back prospects, that will impact his decision as well. John, are the Yankees going to get Bregman and Alonso? I would say no emphatically on those. I don't think they'll get both of those guys. Bregman or Alonso is a possibility. I don't think they get both. I think Bregman is far more likely out of the two, though. David, I hear some rumblings that the Yankees don't want to sign a first baseman long term because they want a run at Vladdy next season. I think they want to run at Vladdy no matter what. They have the DH spot currently locked up with Stanton. Vladdy could be third base, first base if they do sign a first baseman right now, and then eventually they could hit that. They could hit the reset when Stanton becomes a free agent. But Vladdy, I think, is going to be a serious threat for the Yankees next season. We'll see where he goes. Thank you, St. Vintage. Hit the like button. Absolutely. I've got about 45 of you guys with us. Hit that like and subscribe. Steven, what team do I root for? I don't hide that. I root for my Rangers anyway. But I try not to be too rose-colored glasses when I look at them. I try to keep as objectively as I can. All right, now the second news item I wanted to get to was the Baltimore Orioles. Now, I've been pretty hard on the Orioles and their free agent pursuit or lack thereof of Corbin Burnes or a number one starter, and I've been trying to learn a little bit more about why they would seemingly be willing to lose him for nothing in free agency. Now, the trade that they made to bring him in, there was a pick that was included in there. They aren't necessarily worried about losing a pick because of the trade, because they're going to get one back after the qualifying offer on Corbin Burnes. So the trade doesn't necessarily impact them as significantly as, say, a guy with multiple years of control would be, or if they weren't getting a pick back for Corbin Burnes. But it's still a loss of assets here. It's still trading the future of your team and mortgaging it because you don't want to spend at the top of the market in free agency. At a certain point, according to Ken Rosenthal, they will add a 1, 2, or 3 to that rotation. I think they did add a 3/2 in Sugano, but that's more of a wild card. But they're still looking for another piece like that. To me, that fits more the acquisition and free agency of a Sean Manaea, somebody like that. In trade, it could be a Luis Castillo. I think that'd be kind of at the top of their numbers financially for Castillo. Wouldn't be a huge asset acquisition cost for them because they're paying him already for the Mariners, and maybe they take the full boat of Castillo's money and give prospects the other way. Maybe a 3-team trade could work out where the Phillies get involved and send Bohm out to Seattle while Castillo goes to the Orioles. Meanwhile, some prospects go to Philadelphia. Philadelphia frees up some money, frees up a roster spot, and goes after Bregman. All these different things could happen this offseason, and a lot of different possibilities are still in play, even at this stage. We're a week and a half after the winter meetings right now, and there's still so many names that have yet to sign. Some big-name free agents, arguably the best pitcher in the game, on the free agent block anyway, and Corbin Burnes is still out there. Max Fried was probably seen as number 2 or number 3, depending on how you viewed Blake Snell. But Corbin Burnes is still out there, and Bregman is still there. There's still lots to get done. Teams like to get a lot of this business handled before Christmas. We'll see if we get it across the finish line. Are the Yankees getting Santander? No, they are not interested in bringing in Santander. They don't necessarily see him as a fit with that team, and I agree with them. I think bringing in Bellinger kind of solves their outfield issues right now, unless they make a trade and kind of change up this roster a little bit more. The Yankees don't like Santander's defense or the qualifying offer he comes with. I agree with you there as well, David. The bottom line is apparently a lot of free agents, Houston don't get a chance, and hell, I think Houston fans are starting to realize Houston mostly get B-level players because apparently stars go elsewhere. I wouldn't agree with that, Willard. I would just say that they realize Houston isn't necessarily going to pay top dollar when it comes to their own free agents, so why would they do so for free agents that are out there on the board? Now, the one they did give top dollar to for a completely out of nowhere reason was Josh Hader. I thought they already had a great closer in Ryan Presley. They thought they'd build up the back end of their bullpen rather than helping out their rotation, etc. They spent some of the money that could have gone to their own free agents over the last couple of years to bring in Josh Hader. That's the risk they took. I get it. Presley's a little older. They took the risk and decided, hey, we want a surefire option once Presley is no longer back there in our bullpen, so they went and brought in Hader. But that was money that could have been spent on players that are going to be leaving in free agency. Alex Bregman, is the free agent this year. Next year, you're going to have Kyle Tucker. They've since traded him, and Framber Valdez. After that, then you have to worry about Alvarez. You have to worry about the rest of the key players on that team. But we could be seeing the end of the Astros, but I love the trade they made with Kyle Tucker kind of extending their championship window, or at least they're hoping to have extended their window by adding a top-level prospect, a good major league level starting, or a major league level pitcher, a guy that's ready to break in, and then of course Isaac Paredes, a guy they really were valuing at the trade deadline as well. David, Bregman to Philly would be nice. I would agree there. Philadelphia still hasn't shaken up that roster, and Dombrowski, is not a guy to sit idly by. He wants to shake that team up and push the pedal down, and we haven't seen it yet. He's tried shopping Castellanos. He's tried shopping Bohm. It sounds like Bohm is going to be on a different roster before opening day, before spring training. Ken Rosenthal saying, I would bet my house, essentially, that Bohm would be gone. As he says, the Mariners make a lot of sense because of the fit there with Castillo possibly going back the other way. But maybe the Phillies want to do something different rather than taking on the money of Castillo. A team like the Orioles, like I just mentioned, maybe they work out a 3-team deal. Orioles need a number 1 in that rotation. Castillo, I guess, loosely still fits as that description and would give them a long-term answer at the top of that rotation. We'll see if they get the job done. John, are the Yankees done dealing? No, they are not. They're still looking for at least one impact bat and another bat on top of that. So they're still going to add some offense. They're looking for an 8th-inning setup guy as well. Bellinger should play great in that park. Absolutely. Left-handed hitters work well in Yankee Stadium. I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to try to target left-handed hitters this offseason, but they're looking for impact first and foremost, right or left-handed, and then that secondary bat that they're looking for on the market, maybe they go for another left-handed hitter as well. Players lately never come to be honest. Players are pretty honest when it comes to their free agency, especially in the press conferences that they have right after they sign with the team. Hey, why did you decide to go here? They tell you, oh, it's the family, blah, blah, blah. But we still know it's a big reason is the money. But largely, they'll tell you the other reasons that factored into their decisions. They're not trying to conceal those. Anthony, the reason why I wouldn't be surprised if the Marlins traded Sandy, even with his Tommy John surgery this offseason, is because I've seen it happen, where the player is still recovering from Tommy John and still gets traded and still gets a big return. Sure, but I think they want a massive return for him, and so they want to show that he's healthy and back to being the, Cy Young caliber of Alcantara as much as they possibly can. If you trade him with a diminished value right now, even with the injury, it still might be big, I'll agree with you there, but you're not going to get top dollar in return for him. And if you get him to the trade deadline and he's showing that he's healthy, he's showing that he's a Cy Young caliber pitcher, how many pitchers are going to be on the trade block at the deadline that are going to be anywhere close to his caliber? That's why I think holding on to him till the deadline, even if there's a risk of injury or poor performance, you take that risk with a pitcher of his quality. John, are the Yankees done dealing this week? I would say no. I still think Bregman is going to be done by the end of the week. And if the Yankees are going to be there, I think they could be the team that signs him. So we'll see if they get it done. You think the reason why the Marlins and Rays are successful at developing pitching is because of the stadiums they play in? Most of the stadiums minor league users are pitcher friendly. I wouldn't necessarily say that. I would say that there are teams that focus on the development side because they can't play at the top of the market, and so they might be a little bit more invested in the pitching side of things. That and the trades that we saw the Marlins make, to kind of dismantle their best teams, was to acquire starting pitching. They added a few hitters here and there, but primarily they targeted pitching. Rays have always been great at developing pitching, using platoons, kind of looking at it a different way than other teams usually go about their pursuit of free agents, pursuit of prospects. Trades always seem to work out in their favor because they use them differently. They see something different that other teams don't because they value different things than other teams do. So as far as the Marlins and Rays having success developing pitching, I think it's more for those reasons rather than anything about their stadium or anything like that. John, welcome back. Do the Rangers consider Teoscar? His numbers were solid the last 4 years. I think no at this point. They have roughly $20-25 million that they can spend. Teoscar is going to be worth 22 to 24. At least that's what he's looking for on the market. Probably a 3-year deal anyway. I think the Dodgers kind of enter the fray once again there. But the Rangers need to add a couple of high leverage guys at the back of their bullpen. They are said to be a mystery team there with Burns as well. I would think they're going to go that route rather than a top of the market bat. And I think they have some good internal options already. I still think they're looking for a left-handed hitting outfielder. They've been connected to Jock Peterson, but I think Teoscar is just out of their price range at this moment. They had interest in him at the a couple of years ago when he was with Toronto. They ultimately didn't make the move then, and I think that was the last time they really considered Hernandez as a possibility. Heel, welcome back. Welcome back. You think Arenado not coming to the Astros will push them to either get Bregman or Walker or Santander or 2 or 3 of them? I think it might push them to try to get Santander done or Walker. Bregman, I think, is out of their price range altogether. Santander, maybe 5 years, 20 million per for $100 million total, might get the job done and might convince Arenado that you're serious about staying in contention in the American League. And then you get to Arenado to be your third baseman. You put Paredes over at first. If you don't get that deal done, or say you get Santander and he's still not convinced, then you bring in Walker. You got Paredes there as well. Now you've got Alvarez. Maybe you flex him out to a permanent outfield spot. You're less defensively, but now you're still a more attractive piece or attractive destination for Arenado to go to. I still think it's just too early right now in the offseason for Arenado. At least that's what he's telling multiple teams out there. He wants to see how the market really plays out. Steven, a Giants fan, by the way, do you believe Boras is pushing for an early opt-out? Is that what's holding up the deal? I do not. I think it's strictly about where the money is at, period, and then the team that he might favor going to. So if there's a mystery team that he's really hoping to go to, that could be that could be a number there that we're not factoring in quite as much. But I do think the Giants probably have a good offer, probably not as good as the Blue Jays offer, and that might be part of the back and forth between the two sides. Welcome back, Cheese. I think the Yankees are going to wait to make a move so prices can come down a little bit, but maybe dump Stroman this week. I don't think they're going to dump Stroman. I think he's part of that rotation. He's a part of that depth. I don't think they're necessarily worried about money. I mean, they just took on Bellinger. Now that they've added Bellinger, I'm sure they're going to be a little bit more risk averse, but they still need another impact bat. Bellinger is not going to be the only impact bat that they add to this lineup. Say they go out there and they add a Nathaniel Lowe via trade. That's a good piece for them, a decent bat, but they're still not an impact level hitter for them bringing them in. So I think they're going to try to target an impact level player for them, whether that's a Christian Walker and Nolan Arenado and Alex Bregman. If that turns out to be an outfielder, all remains to be seen. But for me, they're still looking to make an impact addition. I think they're going to try to get one of those done, and then they'll probably take a step back, like I was telling David earlier. Doc, who would you think the Yankees trade or sign to fill out the bullpen and bench? Good question there. For me, I still think, say they get Bregman, say they bring him in. I think a good trade for them would be bringing in Nathaniel Lowe from Texas. Would give them a really good punch off of that first base spot there, and I think his bat would really play up there in New York. Getting him to a different organization that teaches him how to be more aggressive at the plate would be just what the doctor ordered for him, and he's only $11 million. And then you just fill out the rest of it with some good, like a defensive center fielder, somebody you can play all over the diamond out there, and then possibly a multi-positional player, a Kike Hernandez type player who can come in and play, first, second, third, short for you, and just give you some versatility. Beyond that, I think they're looking for an eighth inning guy. All right, Anthony, realistic, what do you think the Marlins can get for Cronin and Nardi? I noticed this is one of the free agent signs for big money in baseball, but they don't really care about the signing for a team that's in a state with low taxes. Let's see, you see that they're more football player taxes. Okay, trying to read all your comments there, Anthony. As far as a trade for a reliever, I think that market's a little slower to develop. We saw the big trade anyway for Devin Williams, but I think there's so many good relievers that are comparable to Nardi and Cronin. If they were to move either of them, I think it's going to take a little bit of time, so there's not really a market for those guys, at least at the moment. Mariners might be the team to watch to be in on Bregman. They have been very silent, and that might be for a very good reason. I'm going to say no, and just kind of put a period at the end of that one. If you guys have been paying any attention to the Mariners and what they've been dealing with this offseason, they have a self-imposed budget of $15 million that they can add as far as payroll. That's the reason why, if they're going to look to make an addition, say they wanted to bring in Cody Bellinger, they would have had to have offloaded a big salary off of that roster. Ryan Divish and several beat reporters for the Mariners have, been lambasting the ownership group there for restricting them to $15 million, but they're a smaller market team. So $15 million is not a whole heck of a lot to work with, and that's nothing in order to be able to lure in Alex Bregman. Now, say you offload Castillo and you bring in Bohm at third base, I think that's far more likely for them than bringing in Bregman. Maybe they add a first baseman that's kind of languishing out there, a guy that could use a launch or a platform year. Say like Goldschmidt is, say the Giants don't get that one done, maybe they bring in Goldschmidt as well to kind of lengthen out that lineup. But they need offensive improvements, and it looks like Castillo might be the odd man out in order for them to get it done. They have some really good options in that young rotation. This is the best rotation the Mariners have ever had in franchise history, and they're only going to have it for 1 year. So It's going to be tough for the Mariners to improve, but they're going to get it done. But they're really restricted by that $15 million self-imposed budget. Um, you think Nardi will be a Yankee? Possibly, maybe as a seventh, eighth inning guy. What are your thoughts on my two comments about the baseball contracts? Um, let's see here. I think taxes do impact signings to a certain degree, but I don't think we've seen a free agent go out there and say, yeah, I decided to go here because of the state taxes, to any real significance. If the two offers were comparable, I'm sure taxes would be a factor in it, but I think it's more about where the free agent wants to go more than anything else. States that don't have an income tax anyway do help considerably in bringing those pieces in, or at least starting the conversation, but that's not going to be the reason why they choose to go there. Nathan Eovaldi for the Texas Rangers, for instance, was talking about his first go-round in free agency before he signed with Texas, and said while it was a factor in the beginning for him, it wasn't about that at the end. It was about where he had a chance to win, where he was closer to family, those kinds of things more than taxes. So while I think it's important, I don't think it's the end-all be-all there. Welcome back, Wee Woo. Mariners are like the Angels, except they actually produce pitchers. False hope. Mariners are very good at developing pitchers and signing international free agents that might not be at the top of the market like Ohtani, but getting guys like Iwakuma, players like that. They've done really well in that market. Now, they got Julio Rodriguez, but they've not really added around that lineup. They made some really good additions at the trade deadline last year, but nothing's really going to stick right now because most of those guys are free agents that they acquired. And so they have holes that they need to fill. Trading Castillo and bringing in Bohm would be a great way to get it done. But I get your point there. Angels have struggled for decades with pitching, it feels like. They just can never get it right, at least since Mike Trout has been there. And, maybe we'll see a new era of Angels pitching over the next 3 or 4 years as they change their development processes, but they're a long way away from contention. David, he's the reason the Orioles moved their wall back. All right. Let's see here. Welcome back, VPCZX. Welcome back. I used to be an A's fan, and I always will be, but on the other hand, I can't support a team that is in a city where it drives people to... Okay. I'll put it this way. The A's are in a very tough spot with their ownership group. I think all of that is ownership manufactured. There's still no guarantee they even end up in Vegas at this point. We'll see where they go. But for right now, the A's are a little bit of a team in limbo, but they've done a nice job this offseason of improving the product on the field. They have a pretty good offense right now. They're still looking to add. They've even been connected to Alec Bohm, but they're definitely in a tough spot there. Cheese, what do you think will be the next move? I think it's still Burns and Bregman. Those are the biggest moves out there that are holding up a lot of these other moves. For instance, once Burns goes off the board, Manaea, Buehler, those types of free agents can really get moving. Once Bregman's off the board, then we get the corner outfield market to really get going. Arenado might be closer to making a decision at that point. First base will start getting some movement as well. Alonso, I think, is in that same category there as well. VPCZX, the 9 World Series that the A's won are all Oakland's, not the other city. Okay. Well, if I was making millions, I wouldn't be worried about taxes either, to be honest. True. Let's see. Smelly Cheese. Are there any center fielders the Yankees could get because Boone said Bellinger playing center was a lie? I don't think it was necessarily a lie. I think Bellinger was told that. He was the one that reported it, not somebody else. And so I do think they'll try to use his versatility, not just in center, but at first base. They still have Grisham there that they could deploy there, but there's nothing to rule them out from adding another center fielder via free agency or trade. I don't think they're done adding bats. So if there's a bat that they can add to play in center field and move Bellinger over to first base, I don't think they would rule that out. By the same token, if they add a first baseman like Christian Walker's a far better defensive first baseman than Bellinger. Walker's going to start at first base, and then you put Bellinger in center. That's how that would work out. I think strictly with Boone saying that nothing's been decided yet, is strictly about free agency and playing the game that, hey, we don't need to jack up prices artificially for a first baseman because we say Bellinger's not going to play first base. I think that's all that they meant by that. Yankees Dynasty Kings, welcome in. You hope the Yankees get Walker. Honestly, that's probably the best move for them at first base. I like it better than Alonso. And say you bring in Walker on a 3-year deal and you want to go after Vladdy next year, you can still go out there and do so because you're not having a 7-year contract or a 6-year contract for Alonso. Say you don't get Bregman and you bring in Walker. Bregman's a 7 or an 8-year contract. I believe at this point Walker is a 3-year deal. You can commit long-term money to Vlad Guerrero and possibly put him over there at third base if you bring in Walker. It'd be a little tougher to do once you bring in Bregman and a long-term guy at first base, but I wouldn't rule it out either. I think the Yankees are in all kinds of different things right now that we aren't even talking about, but they are looking at, I like the way they've gone about it though, at the top of the free agent market. Looking at Soto, then they pivot to Fried. Once Fried is done, they pivot to Tucker. Once Tucker, is decided, they move on to Bellinger. Once Bellinger is done, now they've moved on to Bregman. They've been very clinical and methodical with how they've approached this offseason, and they've done very well. Even with the loss of Soto, I'm still giving the Yankees a B so far, and it could turn into an A once they get another impact bat in that lineup, another eighth-inning guy, and then another bat for that lineup. I think they still are doing some shopping. Once they get that impact bat, though, I think their major shopping list items are already checked off the board, and then they can look for some opportunities once we get to January, February. But I really like what the Yankees have done, rebounding after losing Juan Soto. About 40 minutes into our live right now. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe in case you guys are just joining us. Nolan Arenado turned down a trade to the Houston Astros, basically citing the fact that it's too early in the offseason for him to have picked a destination. He wants to see where these teams ultimately fill out their rosters and see where's the best fit, where you can compete, those kinds of things. So right now, it's just too early. It's not necessarily a fact that Houston isn't a good destination for him. He may still accept a trade there, but for right now, he says it's too early in the offseason process. Alrighty, are there any, let's see here, Steven, Vladdy to San Francisco via trade or offseason signing possible? I wouldn't rule that one out either, Steven. I think the Giants are really looking to improve their roster this offseason and next. Vlad Guerrero, Kyle Tucker, all the top-level guys next offseason. I think the Giants are going to have a legitimate case to be in on every single one of those. Say they sign a 1-year deal for Goldschmidt this year, that wouldn't preclude them from adding a Guerrero next year. So they're still looking to improve in any way they possibly can. I think their big get this offseason was Adames. They may still get Burns as well, but so far they've had a far better offseason than they've had in recent memory. So we'll see where they go with the money this offseason and what they ultimately choose to do next year. Woo-wee anyway. Welcome back. I just wish Artie Moreno would have sold 2 years ago instead of we're stuck in purgatory. Honestly, I think that would have been a better situation for them, period. But now you're stuck in that purgatory because they chose not to do the right thing with Shohei Ohtani and move off of him. They tried to sign him. They tried to even impress upon him how good they were when they really weren't. They didn't even get a postseason run with him. And ultimately, they lost him for basically a bag of potato chips, also known as a compensation pick. And that's basically it. The Angels are going to be going through a bit of a tough rebuild for the next probably 3 to 5 years. So it's a tough situation there with the Angels. They are in a bigger market. They can afford to play at these price levels if they wanted to go at the top of the market. But I don't know. We'll see. Let's see where the next comment was. Yankees, no Vladdy. I think the Yankees would actually be good with Vladdy. I think they would use him very well there. There needs to be a free agent deadline in MLB like every other sport. I don't know about that. All other sports have a deadline anyway. It's just that they've gotten most of their activity done like in a couple of days. I kind of like how baseball still manages to find headlines, at random points. Would it be better for us to have most of these decisions already decided around the winter meetings? Possibly, but it's never going to happen, so there's no use, crying over spilled milk. Cheese, where is Roki Sasaki going? I still think the favorite there has to be the LA Dodgers. Over an 80% chance for me. I think the other teams that are still there, I've mentioned quite a bit now. Giants, Padres, Rangers, and Mariners are probably the next bits there as well. Alrighty. Got about 60 of you guys with us right now. If you guys want to hit that like and subscribe, it really would help us out. We're almost to our goal for the end of the year, reaching 2,000 subscribers. So if you're new here, please hit that button. It really would help us out. We thank you in advance. And if you want to hit that super chat, I know we've gotten some super chats over the last couple of lives that we've done. If you want to support the channel, thank you very much if you decide to do so. If not, we're going to be live here either way. So, if you want to enjoy this content, if you want to take part and be a part of our community here, we really would appreciate having you. And if you have a question for us, send it to us, comment. We appreciate every single one of those. Yankees Dynasty Kings, we want Tucker next year. I think he would be great pretty much anywhere next year. It's just a matter of how would he fit on that team. So say you sign Walker. You bring in Bellinger already. Your outfield this coming season looks like Judge, Bellinger, and Dominguez. You have Santana locking up DH for another year or so. Say you bring in Tucker, where exactly is he going to play? Same thing with Vlad Guerrero. I'm sure they could shoehorn him in there, but there's not a natural fit for him currently. They'd have to make other moves, and I think they could. But Tucker would be a great get for them, a great get for any team. But I like the Bellinger addition quite a bit right now for them, and I think a long-term answer may be Tucker. But for right now, they've done a nice job bringing in Bellinger and still being available for a Bregman, for another opportunity that might come across their table this season. And then, of course, in the offseason with Guerrero and Tucker as well. Heel, the only reason I'm for a free agent deadline is because sometimes free agents don't sign until spring training, which is ridiculous. I agree, but I mean, there's going to be, like, even if you get to impose a free agent deadline, there's nothing that says that, MLB teams, can't release a player after that as well, and then they're right back in the free agent pool. There's nothing that says you have to have your roster set by that point either. So spring training is all about figuring out where your roster is going to be once you get to the opening day. And, while it might be helpful for us as fans, might be helpful from a health standpoint of pitchers, I don't think it's going to be a thing that's actually going to happen because baseball's not going to impose that. The Players Association's never going to go for it. There's just no way either side comes to an agreement on that one. Dynasty Kings, quick question. Who's your baseball team? Texas Rangers. They are my baseball team. Alrighty. Two bits of news, kind of recapping for those of you who just joined us anyway. Got about 55 of you guys in the chat. First bit of news, Nolan Arenado has turned down a trade to the Houston Astros, citing that it's too early in the offseason for him to make a decision where he wants to accept or decline a trade to. So he wants to wait until probably January to make up his mind. So if you're waiting for Bregman to sign, it's going to take a little bit more time after Bregman signs for Arenado to really decide where he wants to go. The other bit of news that I kind of was scouting down for you guys today was the Baltimore Orioles and why exactly they seem so flippantly willing to lose Corbin Burnes in free agency and not really push the pedal to the metal there. Well, Ken Rosenthal and a few other sources anyway basically say that the Orioles were looking for a wild card 2-3-4 type in that rotation, which they brought in Sagano, and then they're looking for a 1-2-3 type of a pitcher to that rotation. So say they miss on Burnes, Manaea's still out there, Buehler still fits kind of that description loosely, maybe an Andrew Heaney as a 3 type, but for me, Corbin Burnes is a Cy Young caliber pitcher that you pitch in Game 1 of a World Series. They don't have that guy on that roster right now, and maybe they go in the trade market and trade for Castillo. I think that's probably their best option right now if they don't bring back Burnes. There's an argument to be made that it's Dylan Cease, but then again, you have the same problem that you just had with Flaherty and Burnes. By doing so, you continue to short-circuit your championship run here. I get it, you're hamstrung by finances, but at a certain point, you have to spend free agent dollars. So maybe Castillo being locked up for a few years is the better way to go, whereas Dylan Cease could do the same thing Burnes just did and hit in free agency and leave for nothing. Part of the reason why Ken Rosenthal believes that losing Burnes isn't a huge hit to the Orioles organization is because they gave up a pick to be able to bring him in. They're going to get a pick for losing him, and of course a couple of prospects went out as well, but it wasn't necessarily a huge acquisition cost. With that being said, they're still continuing to get rid of their top-level prospects. You can only have so many pieces on the Major League roster. I get that. But at a certain point, you're going to have to start replacing those guys because those guys are going to make some money at the Major League level. At a certain point, you're going to have to pay Henderson. You're going to have to pay Holiday. Rutschman's going to have to come out from behind home plate and play first or DH at some point. And when that happens, you're going to have the prospects to be able to fill in those spots. And right now, they have the prospects. But who's to say if they continue to do this, that they'll have those pieces when they have to go into free agency and fill those spots without going through their minor league system. So that's my arguments why, the Orioles, I don't agree with the way they've gone about it. The best way that might fit their current solution is probably Luis Castillo. That's kind of why I was floating a 3-team deal that sends Bohm to the Mariners, Castillo to the Orioles, gives prospects to to the Phillies anyway, and opens up a destination there for Bregman. So that would be something that would shake up the Phillies and satisfy Dombrowski's need to kind of shake things up there in Philadelphia, satisfies the needs there in Seattle to save a little bit of money on Castillo while improving their offense. And in Baltimore, they need a number 1, and Castillo would kind of qualify as a pseudo 1, maybe more aptly named a number 2 in that rotation. But you could at least give him the ball in Game 1 and at least have confidence that he's not going to lay an egg right there just because he's inexperienced. He's a good, experienced starting pitcher, long-term solution for you at the number one spot in that rotation until you get some of these other guys that you were hoping that would be a number one, like a Grayson Rodriguez. Maybe they take off now, but we'll see. Right now, they just need some experience at the top of that rotation. Sugano, his first year in big league ball, is already 35 right now. They just need some improvement at the top of that rotation. Alrighty, let's get back to some of the comments you guys have been writing anyway. Michael, welcome back. Yankees now have to sign a first baseman and a third baseman, and they're set. I kind of agree with you. I think it's more about the impact bat rather than the position. I think defensively they could do whatever they want at either spot, but it's about adding another impact bat along with Bellinger that lineup, and then maybe another competent bat as well. To kind of fit your scenario there, a third baseman, kind of the impact bat there would be Bregman, and then kind of a decent bat would be a guy like Nathaniel Lowe to the Yankees. I think there is a market for the Rangers to move on from Nathaniel Lowe if they enter the chat for Corbin Burns and need to offload some salary. I think there's a chance John Gray could be moved as well if the Rangers still wanted to stay below the tax and stay competitive. They'd have a really good rotation. They'd need to fill the hole left by Nathaniel Lowe as well. There are a couple of first basemen that could fit that mold for at least 1 year, at least for Texas. They're still looking for a left-handed hitting outfielder and a couple of good relievers as well. But a move to the Yankees for Lowe, I think would be good for both him and the Yankees. While the Rangers, that would mean that they're getting Corbin Burns, so that would already be a good thing for them. If they don't get a guy like Corbin Burns, I don't think Nathaniel Lowe moves. Wise move by him. You'd like Walker and Bregman. I think those would be the two top free agents I'd be targeting right now if I'm the Yankees. So I agree with you there, Mr. Caputo. The Yankees have to sign Walker, get it over, and then they might not sign a third baseman for a while. That's kind of what I was just talking about, that they need an impact bat first, whatever they decide to do, Walker or Bregman, and then they can let the market kind of come to them in January and just see what actually happens there. Ben Rice for Nathaniel Lowe. That's pretty competitive. I think the Yankees would probably have to add another lower-level prospect, maybe some bonus pool money going back to Texas. Texas really likes to use that bonus pool money when they can. Yankees do a great job of acquiring it. Maybe they send some of it out to Texas in that deal. But I would really like that deal for both teams. Ben Rice for Nathaniel Lowe. Holly, where do you think Andrew Heaney ends up? I don't think that the door is completely shut on him going back to Texas. With that being said, there's so many teams that need starting pitching. Heaney's stuff really does play up. I think Atlanta could be a destination for him. Any number of teams that are looking for a 2-3-4 in their rotation, maybe Cincinnati could make some sense. If Pivetta ended up going back to Boston or going to Toronto, I think he could end up in Cincinnati. That might not be his best situation because he does have a tendency to give up the long ball when he's not right, but when he is, he has some of the best stuff in the major leagues. Welcome back, Coral. Thoughts on Canning to the Mets? That's kind of a depth signing for me. That's more of a 6th, 7th starter for me. I would put him as a long reliever with a chance to start out of the rotation. I'd give him that chance to start spring training anyway and just see if he can earn a spot. But I would like the addition for the Mets. They need guys like that in that rotation or in that bullpen anyway that can give them some length and give them some innings. Canning hasn't really lived up to his once lofty prospect status, but I think going to New York would really be good for him to kind of have a chance to solidify himself as a back-end starter if he earns a job out of spring training, and if not, a really good spot starter that could fill in if Senga goes down again. Then you put in Canning, and you at least have some major league experience stepping in there if Senga goes down once again. Banana, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us for the first time. I don't think I've seen you in our chat before. If you guys are new here, hit that like and subscribe. We really do appreciate it. Follow us over on X at Upside Ascend and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. Why does the Seattle Mariners owner hate his team so much that they want to be this cheap? I don't think he necessarily hates the team, but I get your point that they are very cheap right now. $15 million in added payroll right now. That's a very small budget for them to try to improve their offense. And they're going to have to offload a starting pitcher in Luis Castillo if they really want to free up some money to make some major additions to that offense. That's their biggest priority right now, is adding to that offense. $15 million ain't going to be enough. Even if they had just done Bellinger, they would have blown past their budget. They would have had to have offloaded a salary just to bring in Bellinger. Tells you how tight they are financially right now. And that leaves me to wonder how serious of a destination they could be for Sasaki as well. Even though he's going to cost very little, how much can they really assure him that they're going to have the funds to go out there and spend in free agency to keep them competitive in a very difficult American League West? Astros are still going to be a good team. I think the trade of Kyle Tucker assured them that they're going to extend this window another year or two. Rangers, they have their team pretty much locked up for the next 3 years. They're going to be very competitive. You have, of course, the Oakland A's and Angels that are going to be bottom dwellers, but that starting rotation right now for the Mariners is the best in baseball, and they're going to have to dismantle it just to make a good offensive club there, or at least a representative offensive club. Bringing in Sasaki would be a great option to fill in for Castillo, but right now they need offensive pieces, and it sucks that they're going to have to dismantle that rotation in order to get it done. If you were the Angels GM and had the complete backing of Artie to rebuild, what 2 moves would I make? Right now, I've just signed a bunch of one-year contracts. A bunch of one-year relievers would be the first thing I would do. One of the things that I've really noticed about teams that go into a rebuild is that, if once you go into a rebuild process, those relievers become really valuable to other teams if they're performing well. So say you sign like 6 or 7 guys with non-roster invites with major league salaries of $1 to $2 million if they make it onto the big league club. You get a couple of those guys to hit, you flip them at the deadline, you increase your prospect pool, you keep your team with a low win total because you didn't spend at the top of free agency, you've saved money for your owner as well, so your owner's thanking you as well, and then you continue to draft and develop, draft and develop, draft and develop. That's what I'd be focusing on, getting low cost, cheap contracts, 1-year deals for position players at positions of need. For instance, not a first baseman in free agency. I might target a third baseman or a utility player rather than a first baseman because I can probably flip that utility player at the deadline for a team that needs a second baseman or a shortstop due to injury or a third base power bat, whatever the case may be. All right, let's go ahead and flip over to X just to see if anything is happening. Holly says, breaking news, Griffin Canning to the Mets. Like I was just saying, that would be a great depth signing for them. 1 year, $4.25 million. I actually like that one. If they do put him as the number 6 starter in the rotation, I wouldn't hate it, but I'd rather make him earn it out of spring training. So I'm not against the move at all, but I do like the addition here. I just wouldn't promise him a spot in the rotation right now. So for me, we'll see where they go, but 1 year, 4.25, love the deal for the Mets. Go ahead and scroll down here, see if anything else is happening. Gerber, etc., etc. All right, nothing else there. Heel, Kumar Rocker is going to be at least a solid starter this year. CY needs to shop Jack Leiter, though, or try him in the pen. I think he's got a chance to be, in the Major League rotation starting the year. But he's going to have to earn it, just like I said with Griffin Canning. I think Kumar is probably going to be a lock to be a starter in that rotation for Texas. Jack Leiter, I think if they go with a 6-man rotation, could be that 6th starter. But for right now, I don't necessarily mind the idea of them trading him, but they'd have to get an impact piece back. For instance, if they traded him, I would be looking to get an impact reliever back like Mason Miller from Oakland or Sacramento now. I think they're looking for more starting pitching and getting a prospect of Jack Leiter's caliber with his ceiling. I think it'd be great for them. It would suck if he turns into the ace that we all thought he was going to turn into. A lot of pressure would be taken off. His numbers might be a little inflated because he's going to be in a minor league ballpark. But Mason Miller is a difference-making closer. You'd have to attach more to Jack Leiter, I believe, in order to get Mason Miller. But punching a wall didn't exactly help Miller's trade value. I think that'd be a good type of a trade that we could see if the Rangers wanted to go cheap at the back end of the bullpen to try to save some money, and then go in free agency and possibly bring back a Robertson or a Yates. But those are some big moves that we could be seeing in the offing for Texas if they do indeed decide to move on from Jack Leiter. But I think they're going to try to get him as a starter, probably have him as a 6th starter, but they're going to make him earn it out of spring training, probably have him compete with Bradford for that number 6 spot in the rotation. Alrighty, got about 45, 50 of you guys with us right now, about to cross the 55-minute mark here. If you guys want to hit that like and subscribe, we really would appreciate that. If anything does break the rest of the evening, we'll be sure to come back live for you guys. JRP, I'm late, but are the O's done or are they not done yet? Just to kind of update you guys with the question here from JRP. First bit of news is Nolan Arenado turned down a trade to go to the Houston Astros, basically citing that it's too early in the offseason to decide where he wants to go. He wants to see how the free agency process goes, trades work out for these other teams, and then pick his destination after that. And so I think it's going to take probably till January, maybe mid to late January, before we see an Arenado trade. Second bit of news, to answer your question there, JRP, are the Orioles done? They are not. According to Ken Rosenthal and multiple others, they were looking for a wild card starter, which is what they got with Sugano, a 2-3-4 type. But they're also looking for a 1-2 or a 3 type of a starter for the head of that rotation. They were not expected to go at the top of the market for Corbin Burns, citing that they weren't willing to go to that number financially, even with the new ownership group there. That being said, that doesn't rule them out of going after Manaea or a Heaney or somebody of that ilk. On the trade market, Luis Castillo might be their best option right now, along with Dylan Cease. They've been connected to both guys. Dylan Cease, 1 year left, is kind of a repeat of what they've already done with Flaherty and Burns. I would be less inclined to do something like that. The one I would prefer if I'm the Orioles fan base is Luis Castillo. Gives you the upside of a number one, probably more of a number two in a really good rotation, but you can at least hand him the ball in game one of a World Series and hope for the best. I think that's probably the best route for them and keeps the cost down for the best pitcher in their rotation and allows them to continue to try to develop their own guys. I think the cost as far as prospects isn't going to be exorbitant. I think getting off of the money for the Mariners is the best thing that they could do. Maybe giving a couple of mid-tier prospects up from the Orioles prospect pool is the best way to go. Say a couple of top 15 prospects go to Seattle in return for Castillo. Castillo saves the Mariners $20-ish million. The three-team deal that we had proposed earlier sent Castillo to the Orioles, Bohm to Seattle, and the prospects anyway to Philadelphia, where we could see Bregman go. So there's a lot of things that are still to be decided this offseason. Philadelphia is going to shake things up there and still have not. There are some industry experts who believe that they're going to do so in January and make it via trade. So we'll see which direction they decide to go. They have a lot of irons in the fire. Some of the biggest names right now that we're paying attention to, Corbin Burns, still the favorite to go to San Francisco. Blue Jays seem to have pivoted a little bit now to Nick Pivetta. I would expect them, if they try to get him done, to say a 3-year deal to at least show some consistency to other free agents who are less bullish on the Blue Jays' chances to compete after 2025, especially when it's known that the front office isn't exactly signed up long-term, that the management team there might be gone after the year. Vladdy may be gone, Bichette may be gone. You got to show that you're going to be still a competitive team after 2025. I think Pivetta would be the first piece of that. Santander could be the next. And if Bregman is still sitting there, then you can go back to Bregman and say, hey, look, I get it. We're throwing the most money on the table for you. You're not interested in taking it. But now that we've added Santander, now that we've added Pivetta and showed you that we can at least compete for a wild card if and when Vladdy leaves and Bichette leaves, that we can still at least compete and have you as our shortstop long term, that's a whole lot more of an appealing destination, a little bit more stability there for Bregman than if he were to sign with them right now. Because right now, the only reason he'd be signing there is if 2025 works out and they catch lightning in a bottle and win a series. If it doesn't work out, he's going to be left in a rebuilding situation for 3 to 5 years. That's not exactly appealing to a guy in Bregman who's never been outside of the postseason. Ever since he's been up in the big league level, he's been competing for a World Series year after year with the Houston Astros. He's known nothing different than that. And so a team like the Yankees, who are always going to be competitive, the Red Sox, who are an up-and-coming team that have money to spend, a team like the Detroit Tigers that look like they're ascending as well, are all more attractive destinations to a guy like Bregman. Welcome back, Cobra. Been a minute since I've seen you. I think Arenado is a Dodger. Dodgers are not interested in Arenado, though, unless there's an opportunity later in January or February. But right now, they are very happy with Muncy, and they said they are out on Arenado. Unless something drastic changes, I don't think that's going to change as much as Arenado has them as his dream destination. Bradford is underrated. I'll be surprised if Leiter beats him for that 6th spot. I think that's very comparable competition, though. Bradford's a very good pitcher, but I think if all things are equal, they'll give the spot to Leiter. I love Bradford. I think he's a really good depth piece for him. I think he's better as a starter than he is out of the bullpen, but both players are very good for Texas. I like both options. Joseph, welcome in. First time I think I've seen you chat in our group here. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you are new. We do appreciate it. We're trying to reach 2,000 by the end of the year, if you wouldn't mind helping us out. Mariners don't want Bohm. Well, they're looking for offense. Any type of offense at this point is an improvement over what they currently have. It's a very difficult offense for the Mariners. They have a really good pitching staff, the best rotation that they've ever had. Honestly, I don't think it's all that close. I love their pitching staff, but right now they're going to have to unload Castillo in order to build out their offense. Now, say they don't want Bohm. Maybe that's the case. You know, there are very few other options that really fit them financially. Bellinger would have been outside of their price point unless they got the Cubs to eat half of that salary. That's why I wonder if a trade for Bohm, who's a little bit more cost-effective, would be a better option for them. I mentioned Nathaniel Lowe to the Yankees. I could mention the same reasons why it would be important for a team like the Mariners to go after Lowe at only an $11 million salary. They need to improve that offense. However they have to do it is the way they need to go. If it's not Bohm, it's got to be some direction to improve that offense. So, you know, let us know in the comment section, where do you think they should go to improve their offense on the cheap? Because they ain't going to do it for Bregman. They're not going to do it for Alonso. I'd be shocked if they did it for Vlad Guerrero Jr. next year, even though they've been connected to him as well. Griffin Canning, 1 year, $4 million to the Mets. Yes, I do like that signing for them. I think he's going to be a really good sixth option in that rotation, possibly a fifth option. But for me, I'd rather have him earn it out of spring training rather than just give him a spot in the rotation right now. They're not exactly a cheap organization. They have money to spend. I think they're going to still try to bring back Sean Manaea, even if they give Canning the spot in the rotation. I think Walker Buehler is of interest as well. But I like this signing for the Mets. Cobra, I hope Sasaki will be a Padre. I think you and pretty much everybody else in the world is hoping he goes to their team. Speaking as a Ranger fan, I'm hoping for it. Joshua, welcome back. Azole to the Mets. Justin Steele mentioned mentioned it on a podcast. Possibly. Let's see here. Heel, a guy nobody mentions is Kim. He's going to be good at whatever team he gets him. Yes, but he's going to be good at more of a glove first position. His bat hasn't really played up yet. Kind of picture him as, what's the other guy that came over a few years ago? Kim as well for the Padres. I think he's more of a glove first type player. If you need a good defensive, second or third baseman, I think that's probably the best way he goes. The Giants have been mentioned as a fit for him. Canning will battle with Blackburn for the sixth starter. Would make sense. Like I said, if he earns it out of spring training, I'm happy for him. But if he doesn't earn it, I'd be just as happy putting him in that long relief role out of the bullpen. They need guys like that there with the Mets, especially with the injury history in their rotation. Cobra, where do you think Profar will go? I think the expectation all along has been a long-term deal with the Padres. He really has performed well there since he's been there. The 1 year that he left didn't go well, and so when he came back, it was a good bet, or he was a good option for them. Braves are one that I wouldn't rule out as well. I do like the idea of him, kind of solidifying a corner outfield spot for them and being insurance at the top of the lineup if Acuna doesn't come back as healthy as you had originally hoped and he has to go back on the IL. He at least gives you a leadoff option there. But I still think the Padres are the most likely there. Itai, welcome back. Yo. What moves you think the Dodgers make? Teo, Tanner Scott, Arenado, Sasaki. Arenado, I would rule them out on right now. Tanner Scott, I think he's probably their number one option for a bullpen arm to add along with Ryan Presley. Teoscar Hernandez, I think, is in their realm of possibility as well. And Sasaki, I like all three of those options, but Arenado would be the no of that group. Let's see here. Heel, Profar to Astros if they don't get Santander. I wouldn't rule that one out either. I kind of like that one. Him coming back to Texas, this time for the Astros. Kind of a cheaper option than Santander. Profar is probably going to cost you, 3 for 30, 3 for 36, somewhere in that range. Maybe 2 years at $25 million. But Profar is going to do much better in free agency this time around than he did last. And I still think the Padres are the best fit for him. All right, let's go ahead and scroll up, just see if anything else is happening at the moment. Doesn't look like it. Let's flip over to MLB trade rumors and just double check. Griffin Canning, etc., etc. All righty. If you guys wouldn't mind hitting that like and subscribe, we'll be live with you guys for just another minute or two. So if you have any questions, please feel free to send them. Our chat's starting to pick up a little bit, so if you want to send us a super chat and support the channel, we would greatly appreciate that. Thank you very much for those of you who have already sent some super chats. We greatly appreciate the support that you guys have been sending us this week. Joshua, what free agents do you think don't get signed? Career's over type of free agents. That's a tough question. You never want to wish the end of somebody's career, but for me, Justin Verlander should have been his last year. He's going to play for one more year, but that's one I would have put out to pasture. Patrick Corbin, I think, is a free agent at this point. I think he's out to pasture unless he signs a low-cost minor league deal. He's been really good at eating innings. So a team like the Rockies, for instance, might be a team that signs him just to eat some innings. But he's another one that should be gone. Let's see. First base, there's always a couple of guys every single year. For instance, Joey Gallo. I think he was a one-WAR player this year. A little bit surprising, but I think he'd be a good option as well. Let's see here. Catch up with some of your other comments here. Itai, I think the Phillies get Corbin Burns. What's your take on that? They'd have to free up a little bit of money. That would be a shocking move for them. I think they could move on from Ranger Suarez at that point. Maybe they make a big trade, trade away, Suarez and Bohm, get a high-level, closer at the back end there, and then sign Corbin Burns. But I think more likely is trading away Bohm and then signing Bregman than bringing in Corbin Burns. I want the Mets to get Soroka for the bullpen. I love Soroka as well. I think he's a buy low candidate who could really come in and be a difference maker out of the bullpen or as a fifth or a sixth option in the starting rotation. Really like him. Really liked him a few years ago when he was with the Braves before they absolutely obliterated the guy's career. He's a guy I'm really rooting for to kind of get back to health and prove it and get a big contract. I'm hoping for an Eric Fedde type deal for Soroka this offseason, a 2-year, $15 million deal. I think he's earned the ability to be a starter in the rotation once again for somebody, so we'll see where he goes. Ethan, Rangers in on Dylan Cease, it looks like. I'm hoping not, but for only 1 year, it might not be too costly. But if you're looking to improve the rotation, you don't want to spend, say, 7-8 years on Burns. Dylan Cease would be the better option, but I like the depth that they have right now in Texas. To bring in Cease, I think they'd have to give up some of that depth. Vintage, Packed Wisdom has seen his last MLB days. He has. He's already signed internationally. He signed in Korea. Joshua, thank you for mentioning that one. Steven, hoping San Francisco lands Goldie for 1 or 2 years. I would hold it strong to a 1-year deal if I'm San Francisco because I want Vlad Guerrero Jr. next year. He would be a great move for them and solidify that lineup. You look at that lineup the way it is written right now. Adames is the first legitimate bat that they've had in that lineup since Buster Posey. They still don't have a major power option in there. And a guy I would like to see them bring in is Vlad Guerrero. He would be the first player since Barry Bonds to be that type of player for them. I would love Vladdy in a Giants uniform. What's your biggest hot take on a player getting traded and who they are going to? And same with free agency. Hot take? I'm not usually a hot take type of a guy, but I guess the biggest hot take would be in free agency if the Rangers went after Corbin Burns, but that's already been reported. I'm not sure if that would qualify to you guys as a quote-unquote hot take. So for me, Seager for Cease, not a chance. I don't know. As far as a trade, say Carlos Correa, hot take, goes to the New York Yankees and is their third baseman. How's that for a hot take? For free agency, let's go ahead and do Corbin Burns. And he throws all risk to the wind and signs in Toronto. I think there's almost zero chance of that happening right now, but that would be a hot take. But my preferred one is the Rangers. I just think it's a little bit less of a hot take because I think there's a legitimate chance of that still happening. Let's see here. Phillies basically shot Bohm to everyone. Do they actually move him? Yes. Ken Rosenthal says he does not expect him to be on that roster by opening day. Vida, welcome back. Welcome back. Bryce Etheridge is going to be slated for first base for the Giants, though. Yes, but, you're talking about an impact piece in Vlad Guerrero Jr. You make him fit in there. If you put Vladdy at DH, that would still leave room at first base for Etheridge. You don't necessarily want to commit, 6 years to a DH or 9 years to a DH only. So maybe if you put Vladdy over there at third base, but then you got Chapman. I still think Vladdy would be exactly the piece they need offensively, though. There's not another player that really profiles as that type of a hitter that the Giants really need. They need a Barry Bonds-esque type of a player. I'm not saying with all the juicing and whatnot, but I am saying that type of an impact, power, threat to the lineup. That would be what they need right now in that lineup more than anything else. Connor Joe is a free agent. He could help a team at third or fourth outfielder. True. He's also a very good utility player. At least he was when he was in his younger days. So a third or fourth outfielder like that, I think would be a good option. Maybe a team that's looking to go a little bit cheaper would be a good signing for them. Ethan, Burns to Texas, chances at 20%. That's a little high. I would say the Giants are probably at 65%. I would have said higher yesterday. I think for all the other teams that are still in the running, I think they're all between 5 and 10%. And that's about what I would give Texas a chance to bring in Burns. Alrighty, let's update our page one more time, see if anything else is happening. Doesn't look like it. Flip over to MLB Trade Rumors just to make sure. Alright, if we get a major signing tonight, we'll be back live again. But really do appreciate you guys joining us today. We did a couple of different lives today. If the Burns does sign, Bregman sign, we'll be live as quickly as we possibly can for you guys. So make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Follow us over on X at UpsideSN and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. Cobra, Connor Joe to San Diego. If Profar not signed, I would like that signing for them. So I would not mind that one if I'm San Diego. That would be a much cheaper signing to me than Profar. And maybe that allows them to keep Cease long term if they save a little bit money on Profar. They were a little bit hamstrung financially with the Soto deal by moving Soto that allowed them to go after Cease and after a rise. Maybe that opens the door to other things happening for them. Alrighty. Appreciate you guys joining us. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Appreciate the super chats that you guys have sent us. If you have a question you'd like us to answer when we are not live, don't be afraid to send us a question in our comment section on some of these videos. We do try to catch up on those every day. So if you have a question, if you just want to support the channel, send us a super chat. We appreciate that. We're going to be changing up a little bit of what we're doing now that we've noticed quite a bit of success since we've done the winter meetings. Our viewership is up. The community is really joining us over the past couple of weeks. Gained over 175, 180 subscribers in the last week and a half alone. And we're really close to hitting our goal of 2,000 by the end of the year. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. It really does help us out. We're trying to reach that goal. Help us out and reach that goal of 2,000 by the end of the year. Last comment here, Michael Gravitt. What are your thoughts on Corbin Burnes to the Giants? They're still my favorite to be able to bring him in. I would really like to see that one for the Giants. I think that would be the perfect offseason year one for Buster Posey. And then who knows what they do in that bullpen if they trade Doval or if they bring somebody in. But that'd be a great offseason. Bringing in Adames, bringing in, I would guess, not Bellinger, but Goldschmidt possibly at first base for 1 year. And then Burnes in your starting rotation. That'd be a great offseason in year one for Buster Posey. Just to recap, for those of you just joining us before we head out, Nolan Arenado turned down a trade to the Houston Astros today. Says it's too early in the offseason process for him to really pick any team that he wants to go to. I wonder if there's a situation out there that he would accept a trade to right now. I would guess that being the Dodgers. But the Dodgers say point blank that they are not interested in bringing in Arenado. They're happy with their team at third base with Muncy. They are interested in adding to their rotation with Sasaki, to the bullpen, possibly with Scott, and to their outfield with Teoscar Hernandez. Arenado is not currently in the Dodgers' plans. The other bit of news is that the Orioles are looking like they're going to lose Corbin Burnes, but they might be looking at a trade for a number one option in their rotation. Sugano fits their hole as a kind of a wild card in their rotation, can play up as a number 2, but more likely a number 3 to start their season. And then they're looking for a 1, 2, or 3 in that rotation, kind of headline it. I would prefer them to go after Burnes, but I understand the financial issues that ownership is dealing with. But for me, they continue to have the same issues with Flaherty leaving in free agency. Now Burnes, Cease could be just a repeat of the same thing. That's why I would prefer them to go after Luis Castillo, and they have been connected to the Mariners as well. Mariners are trying to shave some money off of their salary right now, or off of their payroll, so that they can go out in free agency and add some bats. They need some bats there in Seattle more than anything else right now. They're limited to $15 million as far as a budget, so we'll see what bats they do get. The move that we did just see is Griffin Canning going to the Mets, 1 year, $4.25 million. Love the addition here, but I wouldn't promise him a rotation spot. So we'll see if that, when he comes up for his press conference, if he's actually promised a rotation spot, or if they're just going to let him try to earn it out of spring training. That's what I would have done if I'm the Mets. But they're still in the market for some starting pitching. They're in the market for Alonso. They're still looking for an 8th inning guy as well. But hit that like button, hit that subscribe, and we'll see you guys again possibly tonight if there's some big move with, or if there's a big move with Burnes or Bregman. But we'll be back again live tomorrow around 8, 9 o'clock. So hit that subscribe. We'll see you again tomorrow night. Have a good one.